Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Kansas Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. My name is Cornelia Stevens. I'm the Executive Director of Top Early Learning Centers in Wichita and have the honor and privilege of serving as the chair of the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. For our panel members, we would like to thank you all for serving Kansas children, their families, and our state's early childhood care and educational professionals. This is a remote meeting, so today's meeting materials are posted on the panel meetings webpage on the Kansas Children's Cabinet website, which is kschildrenscabinet.org. Panel members, we'll ask you to please clearly identify yourselves when you begin to speak. You can use your raise hand feature, either clicking the little raise hand emoji there and or raising your hand so that we know that you want to speak. That way we don't miss anybody that has any comments. For today's agenda, we're going to approve the September agenda, approve the August meeting minutes that were sent out for everyone to review. We don't have anybody for the Kansas Open Forum today, but we'll talk through that process in case we have anybody for October's meeting that would like, or any future meeting that would like to present. We will get an update or hear from a story collection project that there was a request to have just maybe some involvement and help with that. We'll have an overview and update on the child care system improvement team, a review of the 2024 strategic plan. We will talk about the work groups that we were all presented and had opportunities to select and volunteer to be part of. We'll have a little brief orientation of what's expected with those work groups. We'll talk about bright spots. So this is your first warning for panel members to start thinking about the things that you want to share. What's happening within your organization? What's happening within your community? What do you think would be great for people to know? So start thinking about bright spots. That'll come back around, but this will give you kind of the jump start to start thinking about those things. We'll give dates for upcoming meetings, and then we will adjourn, have a brief break, and then we'll break out into our work groups for the first time this year. So for the first thing, we have our action items. We're going to approve the September agenda. So the September agenda was sent out by Ms. Lindsay. Everybody has hopefully had an opportunity to review the agenda. So if there are no changes, may I have a motion to approve the September agenda as presented?
This is Natalie McLean. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Perfect. May I have a second?
This is Bertelson, and I approve, I agree. I make a recommendation to approve the agenda.
Perfect. All those in favor, thumbs up or say aye.
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 Very good. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, great. We also had an opportunity to review the August minutes. If there are no revisions, may I have a motion to approve the August minutes as presented?
This is Marita Saltuna. I move to approve the August minutes as presented.
Perfect. May I have a second?
This is Hillary Kane. I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor, thumbs up. Any opposed, same sign. Perfect. So as mentioned, we do have an opportunity for Kansans to present and share information to the recommendations panel each month. That is through our Kansas Open Forum. Kansans, we do encourage you to submit comments through the Kansas Open Forum comment form, which is on the Kansas Children's Cabinet website, by 5 p.m. the day preceding each meeting. And that will give you the opportunity to share written comments or to sign up and share verbal comments with the panel during this portion of the meeting. We don't have anybody today that is slated to present for the Kansas Open Forum, but again, we do ask that you submit things by 5 o'clock the day prior to our meetings so that we can actually hear information that you'd like. And we really do encourage you to share information. We'd love to hear new ideas, thoughts, anything like that that you would like us to consider as we're looking at the early childhood system as it results and impacts the children and families in the state of Kansas. So we are going to have Kayla Byers from KU, who is going to give us talk a little bit about the Family Strong Story Collection Project, and maybe how we can help her with this project. So Kayla, I will pass it on to you.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kayla Byers. I'm an Associate Director at the University of Kansas Center for Public Partnerships and Research. And I'm here today to ask for your help and support in a story collection effort that we are conducting across the state. It's part of two specific evaluation projects that we're conducting here around prevention services in Kansas and well-being for families. What does our well-being look like, and how do we advance it and move it forward? How do families seek help, and do they receive the help that they need, and how can we help them better? So we are working as part of the Family Strong demonstration project of a system of family well-being in Southeast Kansas, and also as part of the Family Resource Center evaluation with DCF to collect stories across the state to understand families' well-being. So we have some materials that we will share out that have a link to the story. I believe that's here in the slides as well. And it takes you to an online survey. It's a brief survey, 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And it asks three things, really. It asks for you to speak about your community, your views of what shapes community. Is it the people near you? Is it where you live? Then it asks you to tell a very brief experience, a little story from your life. It doesn't have to be a big event. It's just from your daily life. What's it like to live in your community? And then answer a couple of questions about your experience, and then a few questions about yourself. And what that helps us do is understand, what does well-being look like, for whom, and where, so that we can drive services and supports to different areas of the state where they're needed, that we can understand what services are impactful, where we might have gaps. So we're collecting stories in an ongoing way over the next couple of years. We want to understand these trends over time. So this is an ongoing effort. We hope that you will integrate this into your daily activities, enter your own stories. If you live here in Kansas, we want to hear from you. If you are working with families, we want to hear from the families you're working with. We want to hear from your family members and friends and network members. So please feel free to use this link to enter a story, to share it widely, share any of these materials widely. We can share all of it. We have social media posts that we can share. I can put my email in the chat, and if you have questions or would like some materials to have at your organization to pass out, we are happy to help provide those as well. We're really just wanting to hear from families, and what we will do with these stories as they come in. As I said, this will be ongoing. We will compile stories either by topic area or by geography, different groupings, depending on what we're trying to learn. And we will have community conversations across the state called sense-making sessions, community sense-making. And some of you may have been a part of that in the past. And that's where we come together in community, take a look at the data together, the stories and the patterns that are emerging from what people are telling us about themselves, their experiences, and their communities, and draw lessons from that. What are the stories telling us about your community or about a particular aspect of your community? And then what do we need to do to improve that? The goal of sense making is to make sense of it from the community perspective, but also to result in action. What do we need to learn from the stories that tells us how to better serve children and families and improve their well-being across our communities? So that's our aim. We're really excited to see what families are doing. We're going to be holding our first sense-making session with the stories that are coming in with this survey later this month in Southeast Kansas, and then we look forward to doing that across the state going forward. And so also as you move forward, look for those opportunities from us to come together in your community for sense-making, to take a look at this and be part of forming solutions for families. I'll take any questions, and I will put my email in the chat. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kayla. Any questions regarding the story collection? If not, okay, thank you, Kayla, for hopping on and sharing that information. We'll certainly share all of this with our families, and I've been part of the those sessions before, so it's kind of interesting hearing the voices of everybody. So good luck on the project. Very good. Next, we will have Derek, who will give an update on the child care system improvement team.
All right, thank you, Cornelia. Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Flerlock. I'm the Bureau Director for Family Health here at KDHE. So our Bureau has a lot of different programs, but childcare licensing is definitely one of them. And excited to bring a couple of updates to you all this morning on our childcare systems improvement team. I do want to mention, so our systems improvement team, sometimes we call it SIT. You might hear CC-SIT is the acronym, or the SIT team. And it really serves in an advisory capacity to our childcare licensing program. So it consists of members, various members from our licensing program itself, our local health departments, but we also have providers that sit on the team too. So, and other partners and folks throughout the state. So we get a really good mix of feedback, we think, from this team. And kind of as we transition into a new era of this team, we're thinking about ways that we could utilize their expertise and their willingness to engage to help us continue to improve from that licensing perspective. So Governor Sebelius actually had a good quote, and it was, "The essence of good government is trust." And there's really one way to build trust, and that's to earn it. And so over the last year and a half or so, we've really been working hard to build that trust out in communities. And one of the ways that we have to be, that we have to do that in government, in childcare licensing, is to be a little bit vulnerable. So, we have to be willing to hear that tough feedback at times, but also the positive feedback too. What's working, what's not working, and then how can we work together to either highlight those things that are working well or help solve the pain points. We also hear, things, as everybody does, about portions of the licensing process or just the childcare system in general that don't always necessarily fall under KDHE. And so this is another great way to bring that feedback in. And if it's something that, we maybe don't oversee or it doesn't fall within our purview, we're able to relay that information to other state agency partners or other partners across the state, and even federally at times too. So one of the new concepts that we wanted to bring, pun intended, I guess, to the table is a regional roundtable discussion. So I know Jarvis Dolman, one of our child care directors, is on the call today, and him and I, over the last couple of years, beginning last summer and then again this previous summer, which hopefully we're getting out of very soon. I'm ready for fall weather. We spent some time traveling around the regions. KDHE hosts regional public health meetings with our local health departments, and we traveled those a couple times now in the different regions of the state. So KDHE divvies our state up into 6 regions. And when we were visiting with our local health departments in those regions, we were getting tons of great feedback specific to childcare. What we thought about was we really want to be more intentional about that and more specific about engaging the local health departments, of course, but the public and the providers and the families and really those most affected in those communities, because childcare and the issues that we see around childcare in the state of Kansas can be very specific to the communities. So the issues that they may be dealing with in Northwest Kansas are very different from what we may be feeling in the Northeast corner of the state. And so that looks different by region. So the concept that we have here is to really utilize our SIT team, our systems improvement team. And we want to host a roundtable discussion in each region of the state over the course of the next year. So what this looks like, we'll have, these events would be open to the public. And then we really want that discussion to be focused on local providers and families and communities and how they are experiencing the licensing or inspection, surveying process, and how they, this could look like a multitude of things. How is your support from the state agency? All of the things that go into what makes licensing, we want to hear about in these sessions. It's right there in those bottom 3 bullet points. What is working? Where are those pain points, and how can we and our partners provide more support to those communities? Next slide, please. So the role of this group, and by this group I mean talking to the panel here, in the different areas of the state and the different regions, and these events will become public, and you'll see that slide here in a moment. Really want to help promote the events within your network, because again, we're inviting the public into these. So it's not just, hey, this is for local health departments, or hey, if you're a family child care home provider, please come to these. It's, hey, you're a parent, or you're a grandparent, or you're an aunt or an uncle, or you're just an interested community advocate and you want to learn more, or you have a story to share. Come to these regional roundtables and tell us about it. We will be there. We're not going to have somebody representing us. We are going to physically be there hearing this feedback directly. And then, of course, attending when they're in your region if possible. Next slide. So this is kind of the flow of just generally, how we want it to work. Those regional roundtables will have our SIT team representation physically at those locations. And again, like I said, we're going to attend ourselves as well. That's going to look different over the course of time. So, I very much want to attend as many as possible. That's not always realistic, but we definitely want our program representation there. So it may be one of myself, Melissa Schoenberger, Jarvis Dolman, our child care directors or licensing specialist, or another designated member. But we get that flow of information, right? We get that flow of feedback. The roundtable event, our SIT team is there. They're taking that feedback, they're packaging it. How can we make it better? What's going on here? Sorting and sifting through that info. We take that and then we kind of report on that back to local providers, families, and community members. So maybe there are solutions that we can come to the table. Maybe there's a specific scenario where a provider's struggling with a specific part of the licensing process. So we go directly to them. Hey, we've heard about this in the roundtable, and here's how we can help. Here's how we can support you. And Lindsay, I'm going to keep saying next slide, but just stop me if there's ever not a next slide. I don't recall off the top of my head very well. Okay, perfect. That's what I thought was next. So our tentative schedule right now. So we do actually have the first one scheduled already. We're going to start in North Central Kansas and Abilene. The really cool thing about these is we want to actually, if able and if willing, host these at a childcare facility. So, and that may not always be, possible at a home facility. We certainly understand that you might not want to invite the public into your personal space where you're also conducting your business. But I think the one in Abilene, we're going to go to a child care center that has volunteered to be host for us. So we're really, really excited about that. And then obviously going on down the list there, we're sorting through what those dates and locations are going to look like. And I believe too, I'm going to pull it up real quick. So November 12th is a Tuesday. And one of the things that we talked about doing, two things actually, I guess, was we either need to do it after business hours or on a weekend. Both of those are possible. It just depends on how the calendar falls in that month and schedules and that sort of thing. So we're open and willing to be flexible with our own schedules to make these sorts of things happen. And we'll keep working down the list there to make these regional roundtables. I should mention that the systems improvement team will meet in between these times. These are just those regional roundtable events. So they also have their own meetings, which are used for the same purpose. So that feedback and that flow of information, it never stops. These are just sort of that additional, more personal, I think, opportunity to give that feedback directly to somebody. Keep going, Lindsay, if you would. Lindsay, I'm assuming you're controlling the slide, so I keep saying your name, but okay. So, so one of the things a couple of things that we want to know, how can panel members help promote and encourage engagement at these regional sessions? And how would you like to see information and updates shared back with attendees and other governance groups, such as the recommendations panel? These are events that we want to have recaps of, and be very transparent in the way that we're conducting them. So, what happens at the Abilene event is going to be out there for people to hear about, and maybe a provider or a child care coalition or whomever it might be in the southwest corner of the state says, oh yeah, we're kind of struggling with the same thing over here. Let's bring that up. Let's send a quick email to our licensing specialist or whomever and see what the solution was for that. And can we do it in the southwest corner of the state? So is there another one, Lindsay, dare I say? Okay, so this is it. I also know that one of the questions, we presented this to the systems improvement team themselves, oh gosh, I closed on a home and moved this week, so my brain is mush, but I think it was Tuesday, I want to say, we had our systems improvement team meeting. Lindsay's giving me the thumbs up. And one of the things we asked them for feedback on was, is this sort of quarterly approach enough? My best guess is the answer is going to be no. That's not enough. We want to see you guys every day, right? I know. And so we're just, we're going to work through that sort of thing. What's the right timing, the right frequency? Is an hour and a half enough? Doesn't need to be 2 hours, 3 hours on a weekend. Really putting myself out there with that one. But we are truly trying to be vulnerable and putting ourselves out there, because we know that our childcare providers and the people in the childcare system are putting themselves out there every single day too. So we've got to be willing to do the same. And I'll tell you what I told our team, a little taste of our own medicine, because we do the surveys, right? We do the inspections. Let's get an inspection from our providers. Let's hear how we are doing from them and do some self-reflection. So, again, back to Governor Sebelius's quote, we want to build that trust, and we truly want our providers to feel like they have a partner in the licensing agency and the regulatory agency. So I will stop there. I could probably talk about this in public engagement all day, but I'm going to be quiet.
Perfect. We have a question or comment from Lisa.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to put my hand down and unmute myself. So I'm Lisa Gehring. I'm superintendent for USD 270 Plainville, which is in Northwest Kansas. And so first I want to tell you, Derek, that I am so excited to hear you talk this morning, because what you're discussing is really my true passion and my purpose on this committee, to be honest. So the one thing I want to throw out there, because we are a school district as a provider, and we currently have a family, I think they're now called they're not called group homes anymore, but family centers. And so we have one with 12 spots. We're getting ready to open 2 more that will move us to 36 spots. And by January, I'm in a community partnership with our local hospital that will open an additional 12. So we're going to go from 0 to 48 spots in less than 3 years. So I would ask, do you have anyone on the SIT team that is serving in the capacity that I am? So I'm superintendent, and I serve as, I'm not the director of the daycare, thank goodness I have one. But I am the lead in this project for our community. And I have received multiple calls from all across the state about, how did you do this? How does it work in a school system? And so that's my first question is, do you have representation of where school districts have taken this on? They've gone beyond the pre-K-12 concept to now we are a birth to grade 12 concept.
Thank you, Lisa. So first I have to tell you how small of a world it is, because my wife's family is from Plainville, Lyle and Nancy Dunning, and they don't live there anymore. And Lyle did pass away a couple years ago, but that's the small Kansas world.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
So very familiar with Plainville, Hayes, Stockton. I love that drive, I won't lie. So yes, great question, actually. I don't know if we have specific representation from school districts. Amanda Peterson sits on the SIT team. She's the early childhood director for the Department of Education, obviously. So, but let me check on that for you, Lisa. I do have a copy of our SIT, I want to say roster, our list of folks that sit on it. I just, that list is new, so I can't recall specifically if we have superintendent or principal or some sort of school representation on the group. We did have a community conversation with Representative Davids a couple weeks ago, and there were some superintendents from the Eudora area, and that was a really, really cool conversation. So, and they brought a ton to that conversation, even talking about apprenticeships and stuff in terms of teachers. And I just, my wheels got turning on how that might apply to early childhood and childcare providers too. I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but let me check on that for you. Thank you.
Okay, and then my next question is, if not, would you be willing to consider that? Like I said, just because there's a lot of that happening in not only our area, but across the state based upon the phone calls that I receive. So I ask that you consider that. And then my final question is, for Northwest Kansas, I am happy to help you. I would be happy to host the meeting at any time, and we do not have to wait till July if it works okay for your group. So
Perfect.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
Thank you
letting
so
me
much.
visit.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Karen.
Hi, I just wanted to touch base with Lisa. I know USD 272 also has been in the process of growing via the group home expansion. I don't know if you have connected with, but their superintendent is also in charge of the group home development, as you would there as well. And
I'm sorry, Karen, which group, you said 270 and that's me. So
USD 272, sorry.
272.
Uh-huh. And then USD 298 Lincoln as well have recently created a group home in their district.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
It's exciting.
Thank you, Karen. Maritas.
This, sorry, this is for Derek. My name is Marita Saltuna. I am from the Kansas State School for the Blind. We are currently undergoing a licensing process to start a childcare preschool on our facility. I also serve as a board member of a local chamber of commerce in Kansas, and we would love to host on our facility if the time comes. I would also love to have information about the round table to share in the chamber newsletter. If I can have those, that would be great to let the business community about this awesome initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I am, Lindsay, I'm sure you're doing it for me as well, but I'm also taking these notes down. That's why I'm looking off into my second screen and typing away.
This is Lindsay. Derek, if you or anyone else wants to share any updates as more of those get scheduled, I can try and keep an eye out for them and make sure to share them with all the panel members.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we have more details, I'll look out for that. But anyone, if you come across them and send them to me, I'll make sure to get them out to everyone on the panel.
So Derek, there may be some interest based off of some of the questions, and I could be overthinking, but just to get clarity, is it, are you accepting new members for the SIT team? And if so, what is the process for doing that?
So we just went through that. I would say right now the systems improvement team is full, but you know me, I hesitate to have a closed mind. So I guess I'm open to interested folks. Also, you know, especially if there's different perspectives or a lack of representation on the team, I guess I would say, from a variety of perspectives, we would be interested in that. And so as I type these, CPPR, KU CPPR also helps us facilitate the SIT team. So Megan Cluth, whom some of you may be very familiar with, I'm going to send these notes off to Megan. And definitely if there are folks that are interested, I can, you know, maybe provide your info to Lindsay, and Lindsay could get that over to me. Would that work okay? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I see a hand. It says Jay, but I don't know what the first name is. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. My first name is Janine.
Okay, yeah, it was blanked out. I couldn't see it. I don't know.
Oh,
It was very weird.
For some
I'm
reason,
sorry.
it just had it with J and J Foth instead of my first name.
Yes.
But for Lisa, I'm also with the school district. I'm with 397 Center, and we have a 2-room childcare center that's multi-age and things. But I'm wondering if there's something. There seems to be a lot of districts. Maybe as districts we need to get together and form some sort of a group to connect with. But I don't know if anybody would be interested in doing anything like that. And so I was just thinking that.
I'm taking notes as well, and I think that's a wonderful idea, Janine.
Very good. Jarvis. I'm sorry, Jarvis, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I love all the brainstorming and things going on. And, you know, these are kind of things that me and Derek have really wanted to hear and learn about communities as we've traveled and things. And, you know, one of the things we've tried to do is like fill the gap too. We feel like sometimes there could be a gap between communities and local health departments and in the state. So, you know, trying to fill those gaps. And so these ideas that are going around, I want to make sure that and when you begin having those discussions, that we have our licensing specialists present for those. We want to make sure that we're getting everybody off on that right foot and starting that licensing process, whatever those changes or things you want to do. We're starting everybody off on the right foot and make sure everyone's getting that same information and across the state. Because one of the things we're really wanting to do is ensure consistency and that everybody's getting that same messaging. And we're trying to make things more consistent in our processes. So that's just one thing I wanted to add to that conversation. So.
Very good. Thank you, Jarvis. Dr. Wheeler.
Yes, I was just 258 Humboldt is also in the process of opening. We will have two additional rooms, same type of scenario, and that is actually at the recommendation before we started our build. KDHE, the licensing specialist for our area, actually made that as the recommendation for what type of facility we ought to consider. So we'll add an additional 24 slots locally. We actually have a large daycare in our area that is expanding as well. It's the first time I think we've been able to take a deep breath and think that maybe our county is, I think when you look at numbers, we're really close to being where we will be really close to being kind of where we need to be. I don't know if you ever really get there with infants, but we're going to be in a good place, but we got to get it built first. But we will be, and I know Neodesha just opened one. There are a whole bunch of districts that have started this whole process. So
I have to say, this is awesome to hear. Amanda Peterson and I actually met a week or two ago, and we were just talking about how we have a great friendship partnership, but how we can really strengthen that partnership between licensing, KDHE, Department of Education, and our school district. So I love it.
And Jarvis, I agree, the collaboration, enjoying that part of the conversation as well. So that's amazing. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you, Derek, for coming and giving a presentation and update on that. I moved in August, so I completely understand the brain fog that's happening now. I don't know if I hate unpacking or packing worse, but I know where my shoes and clothes are, so we're good, right? And so, you know, I totally get that. So next on our agenda, we have Sarah Gardner, who will give a deep dive into the All In for Kansas, the 2024 All In for Kansas strategic plan.
Thank you, Cornelia. This was an amazing conversation. I know with the Child Care Capacity Accelerator, we had a lot of USDs who did work, including Lisa's group in Plainville, and We are, just for the group to know, we are trying to pull together some lessons learned from some of these projects to be able to share that back as part of a kind of a report on the impact of the accelerator. So hearing the call for more information about how these projects are going and shared bright spots. So we're hoping to have that in the next couple weeks, and we'll definitely share that back with the panel. Because those real lessons are amazing and they have been really inspiring, like Lisa's group. So thank you. Okay, I am going to be somewhat succinct and brief as much as I can, which is not my style, but I have already shared a little bit about the strategic plan with this group back in August. So my intent here is not to rehash that information, but to actually pull the document apart a little bit for you. So if you wouldn't mind, Lindsay, I think can I put a link in the chat? Is that possible for everyone to see? No, I can't. Okay. If we could put a link to the strategic plan, it's allinforkansaskids.org. You can go to that website. On the About tab, you can drop down and it says strategic plan. Would love for you all to have, if you can, if you're able to have 2 screens up, follow along in the electronic version of the document. I go to a couple different pages in the document and show you how to use the document perhaps, or a couple just offerings for you. Thank you, Lindsay. So just a reminder, it's a 5-year time horizon for the strategic plan. A little nugget here, it's responsive to the 2024 needs assessment, which again, I shared last time, but my new information here is if you want a hard copy of that document or a hard copy of the strategic plan, it is yours for the taking, and would love to be able to ship 1 or more of those copies to your office or your organization. So please reach out, however you want to reach out to Lindsay or to us, and we're happy to get you a printed copy of that. The other thing on here I want to just highlight is that we now have an online home for the strategic plan. I just mentioned it's the All In for Kansas Kids website. You hover over About, you'll see a strategic plan. Click on that. That is going to be the place where all of the accountability, the monitoring is going to happen for the plan. So if you're wondering kind of where we're at, the goal is for that to be a dynamic page or pages that has information about the progress we're making as a state on the strategic plan. On it right now, you'll find a link to the full document. You'll also find a 1-page document that only has the pillars and the goals on it. So if you're wondering at a very high level, what's in the strategic plan, you've got sort of like it's not a formal executive summary because there's not narrative on it, but it just has those goals on there for you. And all of you as a panel member are earmarked for a hard copy of the strategic plan. We hope to have those in hand in the next 2 weeks, and we will figure out how to distribute them to all of you. So next slide, please, Lindsay. Okay, so this is the point. If you've seen Lindsay's link in the chat and you can pull up the document, I'm going to highlight a couple of different, looks like there is 7 places I'm going to highlight here in the document. So I'm going to skip this slide and I'm going to go directly to what each of these bullet points are. I just put this on the slide for posterity in the deck in case you're wanting to go back and review what exactly were those highlights. But now I'm going to go into each slide is going to kind of go into these a little bit deeper. So Lindsay, you can go to the next slide. So you open the document immediately. You've got the title, you got the front page with a lovely photo. And then the first page is the stat about the first 5 years and the importance of early childhood. So this is information that you all know like the back of your hand, but as you're talking to your community, as you're talking to folks who may be like wondering, what's all of this interest in early childhood? Like, I don't have any kids B to 5 in my organization, or I'm not a parent. Early childhood matters for all of us, and we know that. But here are some really interesting data points for you to pull out of the strategic plan if you would like. So the image on the left is right before the table of contents, which is what I abbreviated TOC, about 1 million new neural connections every second during the first few years of life. There's a reason it's called the first 1,000 days. It's because they're such critical periods of time. So that's a data point you can use. And then here are some other data points, and everything in the strategic plan that makes a claim has a citation next to it, and you'll be able to find the source material for that citation or for that data point in the endnotes of the document. So always know these are not things we have made up and put in the document. They are longstanding, very researched data points. So here are some couple things you can use as you're trying to get others on board about why investing in early childhood is so critical. Next slide, Lindsay. This one's a bit of a messier slide, but we talk a little bit about the ecosystem and the question about like, well, who's in the ecosystem and what is the ecosystem? The reason this page or pages in the plan is so critical is because while we have talked about the importance of having childcare spots available for all kiddos and the importance of those early learning facilities, there's so much things that wrap around a family, and what a child birth through 5 needs is a strong, healthy family and community. And those require lots of different professionals and lots of different resources. So this is just it's not comprehensive. I think I shared this a little bit last time, but you'll just see that immunizations and newborn screening are a critical part of the ecosystem. Home visiting, a critical part of the ecosystem. Infant toddler specialist network, like all of these things that are beyond childcare. Crisis services for families who are experiencing poverty or housing instability. The ripple effects that has on a young child are numerous. And so we want to make sure we recognize the volume of people who really are creating and making up our ecosystem, and they're the professionals we need to invest in and that we need to make sure we have enough of. Next slide, Lindsay. I also think I mentioned this last time too, but because it's connected to the needs assessment, there are 2 pages in the early part of the document that just pull in a couple snapshots from the needs assessment. So I just put a couple screenshots here, but hopefully seeing these data points inspires you to maybe go back to the full document, the full needs assessment, and say, what's behind this key finding? Are there other data? Like, this is a key finding in my community. This resonates with me. What other data points can I pull? What other stories can I tell about this beyond my own community to show that this is a critical need? And so these are just little nuggets that connect the dots between the needs that we have been documenting over the last year. So this is just a point in the document I'll point out. Next slide, Lindsay. All right, so this is a little bit new. We didn't do this in the last strategic plan, but at the beginning of every pillar, so the ecosystem, workforce, and children and families is how the document's divided up. At the beginning of every pillar, you will have some data points that you can use. What I like about this approach is that it helps everybody kind of, there's lots of data out there, there's lots of messages out there, and the more succinct and the more consistent we can be with those messages, the more they sink into folks who are less familiar with this work and less familiar with this world. So these are some places in the document, page 7, 19, 27, and 33, if you're scrolling, to find just, again, some data points, some messages, some blips. Clickbait, I think, is what the PR people call it, but these are things that can hopefully get the attention of folks who maybe, again, are just less informed about the importance of early childhood. And of course, all of these are citations that have, or data points that have citations behind them. Next slide, Lindsay. I also want to call out, we call them key data points, you can call them call out boxes, but throughout the actual actions themselves. So you're in the meat of the document with the pillars and the goals and the actions. There are these boxes, call outs that we have pulled out of the document. And it's a deeper dive into some of the key concepts that are either new to our system or maybe are misunderstood in our system. So one, the 2 or the 3 I've called out here, small center pilot. I think that is something that maybe Derek alluded to or not, but it's an exploration of a new license type perhaps. And that is the things that are similar about a family childcare, but just a few additional kids able to be in that facility. And they're exploring that pilot. I think there's 3 small center pilots that are up there right now. So this is just a little bit more about what that is. Same thing with incorporating family voices. We give an example of where that's done really well in our system, the Family First Family Council. And then we talk a little bit about the mandated supporter. So we've heard a lot about mandated reporter. That's probably a term most folks are very familiar with. And the language now is mandated supporter and just recognizes the crucial role that somebody who is focused on maintaining the well-being and safety of children are. So that's a phrase you'll hear if you work on more of the prevention side of things. And so we wanted folks to know exactly what that means. Next slide, Lindsay. I mentioned the endnotes a couple times. It's endnotes that can be somewhat boring, right? There's citations about where a data source came from. There's also definitions in the endnotes. So Derek referenced the SIT, Child Care Systems Improvement Team. There is actually a little bit of a definition about what that is. So there's 40 some odd plus endnotes, maybe even more in the document. So if you're ever like, I hear that acronym, or what is that program? We tried to, if it was referenced in the strategic plan, we tried to put some kind of 1 or 2 sentence definition, or at least a link to where you could find out more. So it's alphabet soup a lot of times in our early childhood system, and hopefully those endnotes can be a resource where you can go and be like, what is this? What does this mean? I've also called out, the circle here is you all as the recommendations panel, a little bit of a definition in case you're like, what is the panel? How do I explain this to other people? You can always draw from that definition. We also have funding source definition. So CCDF and MICV, M-I-E-C-H-V, are acronyms that we say a lot in our system. We just roll them off as if everyone knows. So in case you're unfamiliar with those as funding sources, here's a little bit more information about what those are. So use those endnotes and definitions as they help you through. All right, I think I have one more slide on this particular bit, Lindsay. We also talk about pathways and funding in the document. And so on pages 41 through 44, you'll actually see a little bit more of an elongated definition about some of those local groups, community-led childcare coalitions. I see Tanya Kane. I know Child Care Aware of Kansas has been amazing at standing those up. So it's a little bit more about what those are. Our LICCs, or local interagency coordinating councils, what those are, our family resource centers. Kayla brushed on this a little bit this morning in the story collection effort. What are FRCs? We also have statewide groups. So you are part of a larger governance system. You're in the gold bar at the top, and then we also call out those other groups and a little bit like who is in them, what do they do, so you can familiarize yourself with the container that you are actually a part of, and how do we message back and forth to each other in terms of these governance groups. So you'll see some definitions there. And then the last thing is there are 2 state agencies in Kansas who handle the bulk of the early childhood funding from the federal level. And those come down through KDHE or through DCF. And so we kind of call out what those are a little bit. And again, it's not just early childhood, it's maternal child health as well. It's a much bigger umbrella is the way we define it in Kansas. So those are the big brush strokes, key places in the document that no matter what your work is, hopefully you can find resources and use those components and have the document help orient you to the system that you are working so hard to improve. Next slide. So I saw the working groups and I wanted to just call attention to a couple of ways that the strategic plan aligns with those working groups. We mentioned last time that it's not about taking an action and solving it verbatim, right? It's just about alignment. Here is a North Star plan, and we want all the work happening within the governance groups to align to that plan. But it doesn't mean it is your marching orders directly, right? It's a little bit of an interpretation, and we use the word alignment, but that's really what it is. It's making sure that the work we're doing, how is it meeting the goals and the objectives of the strategic plan? So I pulled out 3 of the working groups. I know there are 5 potentially, but I pulled out 3. The first is workforce exit interviews. So if you go into the plan, and this is just my 30-minute read of the plan. If you were to spend longer with it, I'm sure you could find alignment with every single action in the plan. But for those folks who are going to be working on the exit interviews group, there's a couple of different actions that I think immediately tie to your work. The one that is quite obvious is in the workforce, which is actually 2.5. So your pillar 2, goal 2.5. Routinely conduct exit interviews for professionals leaving the early childhood workforce. So that is kind of the most obvious alignment action. But I also think the 2.4 that touches on the unique experiences of rural regions, things you find in those exit interviews are going to impact very specific, unique challenges in those areas. How is exit interviews helping us understand the impact of burnout and the impact of stress? 3.1 is consistent across all groups, which is as part of our ecosystem goal, we're trying to identify quality indicators and targets. Like what does success look like? How will we know we have a high quality system? And what are some of those indicators? What comes out of an exit interview with professionals leaving the field is very much information that can help inform what those quality markers would be. And same thing with 3.7 in the workforce section, quality improvements. So those are just some broad brushstroke examples of ways that the working group aligns with the strategic plan. So go to the next one, Lindsay. The next one is around the group who is going to be looking into mental health supports. Not only is our ecosystem goal really focused on that, again, providing quality supports and quality measures, we also have some information in the plan acknowledging the impact of natural disasters and emergency declarations and the impact those have on the workforce, right? We know that through COVID, who were the stalwarts? Who were the ones that had to keep doors open? And what was the mental and emotional impact of that on childcare providers? So if you think about mental health, the ability to respond to natural disasters is really critical. And how are we supporting professionals and being prepared for those things? Again, reducing the impact of burnout and stress, exploring ways to do that. Mentorship and coaching offerings. So that's something we call out in the plan. And we know that loneliness contributes to mental health challenges. So how are we supporting our professionals in the field with mentors and coaching to show that they're not alone, they're not isolated in some of their challenges? And then this is one where I think the workforce is not just the workforce. The workforce are families too. They have young children. If you're a center director, chances are you have staff working in your childcare facility who have young children. And so when we talk about supporting the mental health needs of families, we're also talking about meeting the mental health needs of our workforce as well, because they are also families in Kansas. And then I think I have one more working group example, Lindsay. I love that there was interest in this one. This is a huge challenge for folks like me who sit in like the backbone space and trying to help different governance groups and different organizations connect to one another. We just talked about, how do the USDs help support each other and the bright spots and sharing lessons learned. It's a huge challenge in our system when so many different things are happening. And so there's several places in the plan where we could really benefit from intentional effort to strengthen our system's progress and communications. Anytime you see pilot or share lessons learned in the plan, that's a place where if we had a structure, if we had some consistent processes for ways that information flowed back and forth and bright spots and lessons learned, those are always going to be actions that could benefit from this work. So there's the obvious ones about making sure that our strategic plan is transparent, making sure that there's resource hubs available and that we're leveraging the different websites and the different communication channels. But there's also documenting successes and documenting potential policy challenges. So the things that Derek was talking about this morning on the roundtables, that's communications that needs to come back to the system and be shared back. And so as this working group thinks through the best ways to do that, how can we share those with other governance groups and have them implement some of those processes that you all are developing? So that, I think, is the end of my my part here, Lindsay, and I'm happy to answer any questions folks have about the document. Again, if you want physical copies beyond just you, you're welcome to go to you can email Lindsay or email any of us and we're happy to get you a copy. You can also go to the All-In site and just say contact us and ask for copies that way. Karen, go ahead.
Sarah, I wondered if you will possibly be at the Great Ideas Conference in Wichita. I think it's October 22nd, 3rd, 4th. Maybe that would be a good time where we could get some hard copies of this handed out.
I will put that on my calendar and note that. Who is doing that, Karen?
The Great Ideas Conference is
Yeah.
KSDE, I believe. And double
Okay.
check.
Okay.
We also had a question that came in to me through the chat. Are there any one-page flyers that have all of the call outs in one place? So the like statistics.
There aren't, but we can certainly create that. So absolutely, that's a great idea. So we can put that together. That should be pretty easy. And then we can post that on the strategic plan page as well as another resource. Good idea. Thank you. All right, thank you.
And then Lindsay, Sarah, would you be able to send that to Lindsay? She could send that out to everyone as well.
Absolutely.
Good idea. Any other questions? No, well, Ms. Sarah, thank you for the deeper dive into the strategic plan, and it's good seeing the alignment. And I appreciate you emphasizing, as I transition now to the discussion about the work groups, that the task of the work group is not necessarily to solve all of or come up with the solution, but just to make sure that we are aligning discussions to our plans for the state of Kansas. And so, that's a good segue into the next piece. So in this section portion of the agenda, we're going to be talking about the work groups that each of us have been presented and volunteered to take part in. We'll do a brief snapshot overview of each work group and then talk a little bit more about just the process of the work group, et cetera. Next slide. So in August 16th, in the August panel meeting, we had 2 discussion groups to brainstorm the work group topics that bridging the previous work group efforts and how that aligns with the new strategic plan. Panel members had the opportunity to submit ideas, by email. Then panel members were given the opportunity to identify their top 3 work group topics and indicate whether or not they were willing to serve as a co-lead. So we all received a link with all of the work groups that were selected, and then we could pick, again, the top 3 that we maybe had an interest in or wanted to be involved in. Next slide. Each work group needs to confirm a co-lead. Now, when we go through the work group members, you'll see potential co-leaders on some of the work groups, not all, but on most of the work groups, you'll see potential co-leaders that are identified. Those don't have to be the co-leaders. Those are just some potential candidates who might have said, yes, I'm willing to be considered, as a co-leader. But your work group is going to have to determine who the leader is of the work group or who the co-leader is of the work group. That person will facilitate the work group meetings, but will also identify someone that's going to take notes and someone who is going to report back to the full panel. It doesn't have to be the same person that does everything, but we do need to have someone identified. I think that we all know that if nobody's identified to do it, then really it's nobody's responsibility, right? And so we want to make sure that we have it pinpointed. Okay, who is going to be that note taker? I will not be the note taker. You don't want me to do that job. I'm just letting you know, like you don't want that to happen because you'll miss half the meeting. You'll miss half the meeting because I get too focused on the meeting and then I forget to take the notes. But we have people where that's their skill set. So you're going to identify again who are the note takers, who is going to be the person that reports back, and who's going to be the person that takes the leadership role of the group. The work groups, you will have time each month to report to the panel about the progress from the previous month. So today, after today's meeting, for example, we're going to have our first work group meeting. You'll have an opportunity next month to kind of give us an update of the things that were discussed and fill us in on any progress that's taken place. You'll have the opportunity to engage the full panel with questions, input, feedback, or requests for any additional support or input from the panel meetings. So our work groups are family-friendly workplaces, workforce exit interviews, workforce mental health supports, workforce targeted journey recruitment, and systems progress communications. As was stated, we all had the opportunity to select the top three and were eventually assigned to a work group. If in fact you were assigned to a work group, but really feel like your passion or interest is something different, please reach out to Lindsay and she can see what she can do to kind of rearrange your placement or whatnot within the work groups. And if there's a work group that's too small, then we could actually table that if needed. But I think that we did shuffle people around where it seems like we have enough members in each group. But again, we have the opportunity, to kind of change or move around as needed. And Ms. Lindsay will be the one that guides the ship, for all of that. Next slide. So topics identified that were not selected as work groups will hold agenda space for updates and opportunities for engagement. We had two topics in particular, one that was about paid leave, and then one was about state health insurance access for childcare providers. And so before we move forward, I wanted to see whether or not either Brenda or Amy had any input that you wanted to share with us about current or past efforts regarding these two items that you wanted to present and share. I know that this might not have been something you plan on talking about, but I wanted to just give you the opportunity to share if you had any additional information about this you wanted to share with anyone.
Thank you, Cornelia. This is Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition. I appreciate the opportunity. So yes, there is a work group, a paid leave team. I think we've now named ourselves the Kansas Paid Leave for All team. And I will put my email in the chat so that it'll go out in the notes. But anyone who is interested in joining this statewide initiative, please email me and I'm happy to add you to our list. We're currently meeting once a month on the first Thursday at 3 p.m. So I invite everyone. I know several on this panel are already a part, but we extend the invitation to others who are interested in advancing paid family leave in Kansas. Thanks, Cornelia.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you, Bree.
Hi, Cornelia. This is Amy Gottschammer, and I don't have a group like Brenda. It's I feel like it's just sort of me floating around bugging everybody about this. So I about 4 months ago, as all of the discussion about the accelerator grants was coming down and all of these new programs were opening up, while yes, it was wonderful news that we were going to have all of these new slots as a direct care provider, what I was hearing was there's going to be more competition for a very small employment pool. And again, as a direct care provider and a small business owner, I have very little that allows me to be very competitive in how I attract and recruit new hires. And one of the reasons, one of those things is my inability to provide health insurance. And so this became a real passion of mine. And so about 4 months ago, I started really kind of bugging people, sending my my emails out to cabinet members and local providers and agencies in Douglas County, and to Jarvis and Derek at KDHE and Kansas Action for Children and everybody else that would listen, and saying, is there something that can be done? Is there a way through the state health insurance program that that early childhood providers couldn't possibly be their own group, because there is such a thing that allows for non-state employees to be eligible, not necessarily for it to be paid for, but to be eligible to be enrolled in the state employee health benefits program. Things like city commissioners, school districts, things that are entities that are not employed directly by the state of Kansas are still allowed to purchase their health insurance through the state of Kansas. So I wondered if there was some way that we could make that happen. And as a result of some of those emails that I sent out, I was told by, pardon me, Derek and others, that there is some discussion going on, maybe in the SIT team and other places about that. And so I am also trying to direct my efforts towards our congressman. I don't know if there's any bills out there, if there's anybody that's trying to make that happen. I have done some other research into what can happen right now, because these accelerator grants have caused these programs to open. And so this is of a more immediate concern for me. This is not something that I feel like some of us can wait just months or years for something to happen. So I'm looking into what can happen immediately. So I'm finding that there are some options for things like concierge or membership health insurance programs. Local communities, I don't have any idea at this point how pervasive they are across the state of Kansas, but I know in Douglas County there are some that will provide more like you have to go to their one facility, but if you pay $59 a month or something, they'll take care of when you're sick, they'll do your ear infection or sinus infection, or they'll do lab result or imaging, things like that. This sort of basic things, but nothing major medical. And then I found another national company that also for a monthly fee, they will do more extensive things, including mental health care and telemedicine and things like that. So there are some other options that are not your traditional Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare types of insurance plans. So if that's what we have to do in the meantime, I don't know, as more research comes, maybe we'll find that that's even a better option for family home providers, for center providers and other people in early childhood. Maybe being a part of the state insurance plan isn't even the best option, but I just want to really keep pushing forward. And so I'm just asking for help and attention being paid to this issue. So that's my spiel. Thank you.
Very good. Tanya?
I won't take long, but Amy, I'll reach out to you. This is something the GO team, which is a statewide team, actually just put on our radar to start working on this month. So I'll reach out to you and we can connect and start working on that together.
I will also, so Mandy, don't hide from me. And so I will also state that in Wichita, there is a group of individuals, there's a child care work group where there were some members that went to a neighboring state who has already done something similar. And so they went there to research and learn more about what they did to be able to create such a system. And so Ms. Mandy from Child Start is on that committee, and did agree that once they actually had more information, that maybe we could have somebody from that group come and speak, regarding that. So I think that, it's good if we can align all of our efforts so that we're not all targeting, doing different things or whatever, but also explore various opportunities. And so I did ask them, once they get back and they can actually put everything together or whatnot, if they can come back and share. And so, Mandy, I don't know if you have brief updates or any kind of status update now, or if we just need to wait until, I don't know if anything was learned from the recent trip or not.
There were some things learned, but they're still in the process of putting all of that together so that we can see how we can move forward with it.
Okay, great. And so, so they did say that they would be interested in coming and presenting and sharing information. And so that might be an agenda item that we'll have, hopefully soon, to be able to talk more about those efforts. So if there are other, and thank you, Mandy, for that, brief update. I appreciate that. So if there are other topics that panel members would want to elevate for discussion, those can be shared during our meetings, added to the agenda, or you can just send them to Lindsay. We can kind of do some research, see if we can have anybody, that has more information about that topic that can also come, and share the agenda as well. And so, just because these are the work groups that are identified, it doesn't mean that these are the only things that we talk about in our panel meetings, right? Next slide. So the first group is family-friendly workplaces. So research shows that family-friendly policies lead to higher employee retention and recruitment, increased productivity, lower healthcare costs, and more satisfied and motivated workforce. The broader community also gains economic growth and stability from increased workforce participation and improved early childhood outcomes. So the panel work group that's dedicated to family-friendly workplaces is going to create and refine a comprehensive roadmap for establishing a family-friendly workplace designation in Kansas, including forging essential partnerships and initiating the implementation process. Additionally, the group may identify and engage key marketing audiences to promote both the importance of the designation and its practical use while executing foundational marketing strategies to support these efforts. That was a lot. And so that's kind of a brief overview of what the family-friendly workplace, the reason for the work group, and then a brief summary of what they're going to be doing. Next slide. Members identified. Members are identified on this slide with possible co-leads as Dana and Brenda. Again, you as a work group will identify who, the lead of the group or the co-leaders of the group are. Again, you will also identify who's going to take notes and then who's going to be the spokesperson that will present. The leader doesn't have to be the one that does everything. You can also share the wealth, with each meeting. Just make sure that you identify someone. Next slide. For exit interviews, you can see there in the overview that the early childhood workforce encompasses a range of professional fields, including childcare workers, early educators and administrators, early intervention specialists, and home visitors. Highly qualified and valued professionals are key to creating the consistent, safe, and high-quality experiences we want for our younger children. Shortages in the number of high-quality early childhood professionals as a particular point of emphasis in this plan, as it has implications for child and family well-being and the Kansas economy at large. And so this is not just exit interviews for child care centers. We're talking about early educators, administrators, intervention specialists, home visitors. So it's a wide range. All those impact, our Kansas children and families in early childhood. The panel work group focuses on exit interviews. Will assess current practices within Kansas early childhood ecosystems to identify effective strategies for capturing and analyzing data on challenges faced by early childhood professionals that are leaving the field. And so, with the hopes that if we have a system in place where we are all consistently and potentially asking the same questions, that we can, figure out what the story is statewide in terms of why people are leaving. And then that helps us then come up with solutions. Next slide. Possible co-leaders are Holly and Stephanie, and these are the members of the group. Again, these don't have to be the leaders or co-leaders. There can be other members, but the work group will identify the individuals that will be the leaders or co-leaders, and then identify, again, the person who will take notes and present for the large presentation. Next slide. Mental health supports. Given the stress and emotional demands of the early childhood profession, effective mental health supports are crucial to ensuring the well-being of professionals, which in turn enhances the quality of care and education provided to young children. The panel work group focuses on mental health supports, may compile and disseminate a comprehensive list of free resources for Kansas early childhood professionals while analyzing qualitative data from the workforce survey to uncover key insights and needs. So that is an overview of the group and the focus then of what potentially could be for this work group. Possible co-leads have not been identified yet. So this work group will have the opportunity to identify the leader of the group and then also identify again the note taker and who will give presentations. And then we have targeted journey recruitment. Kansas faces an aging early childhood workforce and significant barriers to recruiting new early childhood professionals to the field. And that includes reasons such as competitions with school districts, lack of benefits and health insurance, adequate compensation, home ownership barriers for family child care, et cetera. Additionally, professionals change career paths more often than previous generations. What strategies can we identify or implement to target recruitment to new professionals? That could include paid internships, scholarships, and access to higher education. So those are some things you can explore as we're looking at ways to help us recruit more professionals to the field, because we have so many who are kind of aging out or retiring or choosing to move on to a different field. Possible co-leaders include Bronwyn, Chelsea, and Chessia and Amy. And you have all of the members here that are identified. Again, you will identify who your leader or co-leaders are, and then who will be the note taker and give presentations. And we have system progress communication. So this work group will focus on identifying key system elements and initiatives that require effective communication, such as community efforts to address staffing concerns or innovative approaches to compensation. They will assess how the panel can help members and communities stay informed about ongoing work across the state, learn from successful local solutions, and apply these lessons broadly. This may include evaluating pain points in current system level communications, exploring how stakeholders access and utilize updates, and determining the most effective communication strategies to share specific, actionable insights and scalable solutions. Next slide. Possible co-leads. We have several for you to choose from. We have Kelly, Lisa, Tanya, and Heather. And then you have the members that are identified. And so you will identify your leader or co-leader, and again, your note taker and spokesperson. So that is a overview of the actual work groups, overviews of the work groups themselves. Now, because she's identified specific things that you can work on within your work group, if you find in your conversation that there are also other things that you want to target, there's other things that you want to talk, the reason that you got interested in the work group are not because of any of the things that are listed here. You have the freedom and the opportunity to discuss whatever it is and identify the things that you would like to discuss and explore. And again, the goal does not have to be that you solve the solution for the state of Kansas. I mean, if we can, yes, please go for it. But you don't have to solve the solution. Sometimes that's a heavy burden to carry, right? So really, it really is just to make sure that we are aligning our conversations, that we're all thinking broadly and thinking about the same things. So Ms. Sarah is going to give you a orientation of the work groups. And so I'll pass it over to you, Ms. Sarah.
Thanks, Cornelia. Just one slide on this one, and because we've talked about this over the last couple of months, but I just if your working group wants some support to actually kind of flesh out what the year looks like very happy to join your work group and kind of help put a framework or pen to paper around what your targets and goals are. Just an offer for folks. But one of the things that would be helpful, particularly as we get to June of next year, which is the technical end of each panel served year, which is, what does success look like for your working group? It's really hard. It's a moving target a lot of time, and it's tricky to know how to feel good about the work if you don't have a visual of what that success looks like. To Cornelia's point, you don't have to solve the issue, but maybe it's a document that highlights all of the resources for something. Maybe it's a recommendation that professionals do something different, or that organizations do something different. So, or it could just be looking at what the landscape is on your particular topic. So you have a lot of latitude in what success looks like. A way to think about each month you'll have your time to break out is, if you can back map from that success point, what are some of those micro goals and micro success points look like, and how can you work towards that? And then, Derek was here talking about the SIT. You now know, all the other governance groups, who else do you need to talk to? What are those connection points? And can you brainstorm those so you have time throughout the year to go talk to those different groups, or have them come join your working group for that 1 month. So obviously you all are panel members as working group members, but you can have folks on your working group or who come to your meetings that are not panel members. That is very much allowed to pull together the expertise that's needed to move things ahead. And then just from a tactical standpoint, Cornelia talked about note takers, and you know, it's one of those things that's just the part of meetings that has to be note taking for folks who can't attend. But look ahead at calendars and see, you know, you're not gonna be able to make every single meeting. So what's the backup plan for some of that? And just kind of spread that burden of taking notes and reporting out across the group if so that the co-leads aren't expected to be at every single meeting all the time and don't have, you know, lives outside of the panel. So just a couple nuggets, and then final thought is the SharePoint. You know, use the SharePoint to post documents, to share links with each other. Emails get really crazy, so that SharePoint site can be a nice bookmark to go back to with all of the resources. And then the last thing is you will report back to the full panel. Loved the discussion this morning about like how you can help each other. Like bring your information back to the full panel, bring asks back to the full panel. And again, you're wearing your community hat. Maybe it's an ask that you take to your community. Maybe it's an ask you take to your organization, but leverage your membership because there are many of you and lots of expertise. So that's what I got, Cornelia.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. So in the beginning of our meeting, you were given the opportunity to start brainstorming, start thinking about the bright spots that you'd like to share. So who would like to go first? Who has any bright spots, any information that's that are happening within your organization, your community, or that you think would be of interest, or that you would like to share with fellow panel members? Who would like to go first?
This is Kelly France Langford, and I would love to share a bright spot with the group.
Perfect.
And I don't know what would be the most appropriate way to do this, but I don't know if I can share my screen or email something out to panel members later. But what I would like to talk about is all of our formerly known as Tiny K programs, our birth to 3 special education programs across the state have agreed to unite under one name, Infant Toddler Services of Kansas, and then either provided by or served by the local program. Is it possible to show our new website, or would it be better to email something out to panel members?
I'm okay if you want to take the screen share, feel free.
Okay, awesome. Give me 1 second. I had the strategic plan pulled up in the background. Okay. All right, can you see my new website? Awesome. So you will notice, first of all, that we have a whole new look. Infant Toddler Services of Kansas, we've had I always say, sometimes referred to as Part C, sometimes Tiny K. We have been Infant Toddler in the past. We fall under Kansas Early Childhood Services. And so I feel like we're trying to really come together and represent the fact that we are the same program across the state with 29 different offices. And this was truly a labor of love and has taken almost 1.5 years to come to fruition. But we were able to pull our money together. Thank you to Trisha Wagner, who is the KDHE Part C director. She really allowed us to open up and think broadly about how to combine money and come together to do this. It never would have happened without her leadership. But you can see that we are looking towards how do we say who we are to families? How do they find us if they have a concern about development across the state? What is the easiest connection point? So we have built this website saying who we are, talking about early intervention services, how to find a program, your local program. And I'm super excited about this one. So you can enter your zip code. and search, and your local coordinator and program name will come up, our website, the areas that we serve. So hopefully when families are trying to reach us or community partners, it is a one-stop shop for all of that information. If you scroll down, it talks more about who we are. The Part C services, special education for birth to 3. Some information about things where you might want to consider a referral if you have concerns about your child, our impact across the state, and really looking at, again, one program with 29 offices, some parent testimonial, because we know that that's important, that parents hear from others who have experienced our services. I'm particularly proud of this stat, and it goes along with what was shared earlier, that over 36% of kids receiving early intervention do not require special education after our program. The strategic plan noted that earlier as well. And then downloadable resources for parents. And so I'm very excited. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us across the state. And so hopefully your partners that you've known, Arrowhead West, Russell Child Development Center, et cetera, will now, when you look at them, you'll see the Infant Toddler Services of Kansas logo, colors, and most importantly, a shared mission and purpose. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kelly. Heather.
Good morning, Heather Schulberger with the Kansas Head Start Association. I wanted to share that the Successful Beginnings Wyandotte County Head Start, which is in the Kansas City, Kansas School District, was selected as one of 12 programs across the nation to earn the National Head Start Association's Program of Excellence accreditation for their exceptional dedication to delivering high quality services. So it's quite an honor for them. We're very pleased for them. And if you would like to learn more about that, what went into that, you can visit our Facebook page, the KHSA Facebook page, or our today's newsletter, which will be posted on our website. Thanks.
Very good. Maritas.
Good morning. I'm really excited for the unveiling of the Infant Toddler Services of Kansas. So thank you for sharing that, Kelly. We are a secondary support or provider of the Infant Toddler Services in Kansas, and we offer our services free statewide. And thank you also to the Part C for their collaboration with us. I'd like to share that September is the Cerebral or Cortical Visual Impairment Awareness Month. And CVI is the leading cause of childhood blindness and low vision. It is a brain-based visual impairment caused by damage to the visual pathways or visual processing areas of the brain. And the Family Infant Toddler Services launch the CVI Early Intervention Initiative. So if you have any questions, about CVI, or if you know someone, let us know. And one of our developmental vision specialists assigned in your region will be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Brenda.
Yes, thank you. This is Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition. And I just wanted to share that we received news late yesterday that Kansas has been selected to send a state team of 5 to the Prenatal to 3 Policy Impact Center conference in December in Denver. Yes, who doesn't want to go to Denver in December, right? It's a wonderful chance to learn more about evidence-based early childhood policy making. And I know there are a couple on the call here that are a part of the state team, and we're looking forward to sharing back what we learn in December.
Very good. Congratulations. Patty. I saw your name, her hand popped up and then it went down, so I wasn't sure if that was.
Yeah, I mean, I always have something to share, but not today.
Okay, okay, there you go. There you go. Is there anybody else? Do we have any other bright spots or anything that anyone would like to share? Okay, if none, please remember that you will receive a link for an email from Lindsay with an opportunity to provide feedback with a post-meeting survey. Our next early child recommendations panel meeting will be on Friday, October 18th at 9 o'clock. And the next Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund meeting will be October 4th from 9 to noon, from 9 to 12. And that's going to be live streamed on the Kansas Children's Cabinet's YouTube page. So we are going to take a 10-minute break to give us an opportunity to refill coffee cups or anything else that's needed before we come back to join our work groups. We're going to pretend that that says that instead of 10:32, it's 10:35. We're going to come back at 10:45. So I'm going to give you an extra 3 minutes. And so we'll come back at 10:45 and the work groups will be here. So for those of you who are new, you won't have to go to a different Zoom page. You'll just come back to this and you'll see the breakout rooms or whatnot. And you just pick the one that is for your assigned work group. So I will see you all momentarily. Thank you all for joining us for the September meeting, and I look forward to seeing you all in October. Take care.